Great philosophers who lost in love. You may ruin your own love life, but it's always comforting to know that someone else has done something much worse. Neil Pollock. We all have questions about love. We all wonder about the secrets of a successful relationship. Is he the love of my life? Is it right to be with my boss? How can I tell if my husband is cheating on me? Seeking answers from wise people sounds logical. Philosophers have pondered over many significant topics, from ethics to politics. If there are people who can teach us something about abstract concepts like love, it's philosophers. However, there's a difference between being in love with wisdom and being a wise lover. Philosophers have always approached love critically and sometimes arrogantly. Their views on love can be contradictory and unsettling. These kinds of behaviors made them poor candidates for being good partners. For instance, some philosophers rejected love altogether and faced great difficulties in their relationships. While Louis Althusser might not have killed his wife, his perspective on love is debatable. Jean-Paul Sartre adopted his mistress as his daughter, while Seneca was exiled because of an affair. Although some philosophers died lonely and in misery, others overcame their mistakes and had successful marriages. Albert Camus, for instance, lived with several mistresses around the world without his wife noticing, but tragically died in a car accident. Similarly, Henry Ward Beecher had extramarital relationships, while his wife was busy raising their 10 children. Bertrand Russell, on the other hand, believed in the success of a fourth attempt at marriage. This book tells the stories of a few of the great philosophers who lost in love. Throughout history, great minds and broken hearts have often gone hand in hand. As genius grows, so does the pain and failure. As Bob Dylan said, you can't be both in love and wise at the same time. Petrus Abelardus, 1179–1142. Od tejto chvíle nikto by nemal nasledovať, pretože odsťahovaná žena je bezúšľuchová stvorená. The French philosopher Abelardus, according to his own words, had absorbed all the knowledge of his time with his philosophical genius. At the height of his fame, after surpassing all his teachers in logic problems and establishing his own school, he accepted the chairmanship of the educational division at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris in 1115. His lectures on Greek philosophy and Christian theology attracted thousands of students. However, among them, one stood out: 17-year-old Héloïse d'Argenteuil, who caught the philosopher's attention amidst the crowd. In his autobiography, he says, "I saw her, I loved her, and I was determined to make her love me." Héloïse was living with her uncle Fulbert, one of the cathedral's priests and a rather influential person. However, this was a minor obstacle for Abelardus, who was planning to hide Héloïse from her uncle's watchful eyes. "I desired her with great passion, and I wanted to face small obstacles with great victory and pleasure." Through a mutual acquaintance, Abelardus met Fulbert and became friends with him. By chance, Fulbert hired Abelardus as Héloïse's philosophy tutor. Abelardus, extremely pleased with this situation, says, "Can you believe it? He gave me the privilege of sitting at the same table, the opportunity to live in his house in an apartment. And through this, I had the chance to be alone with her." Héloïse fell in love with her teacher, who was twice her age. Private tutoring sessions quickly turned into physical love sessions. In no time, their love could no longer fit within the days, and they started secretly meeting at night to express their mutual feelings. As one of Abelard's contemporaries boldly put it, the professor taught Héloïse not only to argue, but also to sin. The rumors about Abelard and Héloïse's relationship spread all over Paris and eventually reached Fulbert's ears. The angry uncle kicked the professor out. Abelard refused to leave his young lover. After renting an apartment near Fulbert's house, he met Eloise's servant, Agathon. Unfortunately, Agathon also had feelings for Abelard. "I'm in love with you, Abelardus. I know you worship Heloise, and I don't blame you. My only wish is to be second in your heart. Don't let this confuse you. A wise man should love many people at the same time. That way, if he fails in one, he won't be left unsupported." Sounds like a reasonable offer, doesn't it? But no. Abelard only had room in his heart for one woman. Abelardus rejected Agathon's offer. The rejected servant, in anger, went to Fulbert and told him that Abelardus's interest in Heloise was still ongoing. Abelardus, referring to the servant who revealed his secret, said, "A rejected woman is a ruthless creature." Agathon's revelation caused Uncle Fulbert's anger to boil even more. Abelardus's attempts to regain Fulbert's favor were in vain. The lovers had never been so distant. Moreover, there was a problem that complicated everything even further. Heloise was pregnant. Desperate, Abelardus did the only reasonable thing. He climbed the walls of Fulbert's house, kidnapped Heloise, and disappeared into the darkness of the night. He took Heloise to his hometown of Brittany, where she gave birth to the child that was the fruit of their love. Fearing that the situation would turn into a scandal, Abelardus immediately sought a solution, and perhaps acted too hastily. To ease the tension with Fulbert, he proposed marriage to Heloise. When Fulbert surprisingly accepted the peace offer, Abelardus and Heloise were married in a secret ceremony. However, Heloise was against marriage. She believed that marriage would take their relationship out of its natural flow and turn it into an ordinary business arrangement. "Would it be more acceptable for me to see myself as your wife rather than your mistress? Things like crying babies and family care contradict the peace required by work." This was partly true. Abelardus had been neglecting his philosophical studies for some time, spending his time playing at home. Reluctantly, he bowed to his wife's wishes and sent her to a monastery where she could live safely. The care of their son was left to Heloise's sister. Historians explain the events that followed as such. We know very well that Abelardus was not treated kindly. Upon learning that his nephew had been sent to the monastery, Fulbert had Abelardus castrated. Abelardus describes this event with chilling calmness. "A hired assassin, with a razor in hand, entered my bed while I was in deep sleep. I was punished with the most painful and shameful revenge a foe could conceive. In short, I lost my masculinity before losing my wife." Abelardus, by offering one of the most striking examples of positive thinking recorded in history, viewed his castration as the moment he was freed from his immoral past. He found solace in a monastery and was finally able to write down what was in his heart there. "I found the cure for my shame in philosophy and religion. I sought a refuge to protect myself from love." Heloise frequently wrote letters to her estranged husband. Their passionate correspondence became a legend in its own right. In one of her letters, Heloise wrote, "If you don't tell me that you still love me, I won't be able to live," and then cursed her castrated husband, telling him that she loved him not as a man, but as a human being. As their correspondence progressed over time, Abelardus's tone shifted from lover to that of a monk. In one of his last letters, Abelard advised Heloise to dedicate herself to God and forget her wounded lover. "From now on, you must devote yourself entirely to your salvation. This should be your only concern. Therefore, close the doors of your heart to me forever." Abelardus continued his work and eventually founded the Paraclete Monastery. Heloise, however, refused to close her heart to Abelardus. She lived 22 more years, but was eventually buried next to him in the monastery cemetery. Abelardus's secret love affair with his student greatly harmed his academic habits. Instead of focusing on philosophy, he spent his time writing love poetry. As a result, he revealed his extraordinary talent as a poet. Young men who read a few pieces of Abelardus's poetry were able to win the favor of young women. In a half-court poet style, he said, "Those who were as much in love as I was proudly learned my poetry. By applying my thoughts and words, they gained attention that they could never have earned otherwise."